February 1945. Iwo Jima. The air is thick with smoke and sulfur. Beneath Mount Suribachi, Japanese soldiers wait in tunnels carved through volcanic rock. They have been told the Americans are weak, soft, afraid of dying. But when the Marines land, those beliefs die in minutes. Under a storm of artillery and machine gun fire, they keep moving forward step by step until they reach the bunkers. Private Tadashi Yamamoto watches through a firing slit as Marines charge again and again. They fall, stand up, and keep coming. His hands shake as he writes in his notebook. The Marines are not human. They do not die like other men. This is the moment Japanese soldiers across the Pacific begin to fear one enemy above all others. Before Iwo Jima, the Imperial Japanese Army believed spirit could overcome material power. They trusted in Bushido, the way of the warrior. But what they met in the Pacific was something different. A fighting machine that combined discipline, aggression, and an endless stream of men, ammunition, and steel. The U.S. Marines weren't just brave. They were organized for continuous war. Their strength came from two engines: brutal training and industrial power. Before the war, Japanese propaganda painted Americans as weak consumers. They believed democracy made soldiers selfish. Officers told recruits that the Marines would panic under fire and flee from bayonets. Then came Guadalcanal in 1942, the first test. 16,000 Marines landed expecting chaos. Instead, they built defenses overnight, wiring their perimeter with overlapping fields of fire. When Japanese troops attacked at night, Marines counterattacked into the darkness. To the Japanese, it felt impossible. No one had ever advanced into a night assault before. They wrote in diaries, "They fight as if darkness gives them strength." Marines fought 24 hours a day. Daylight brought artillery, tanks, and aircraft. Night brought patrols and infiltration teams. Their junior leaders, corporals and sergeants, made instant decisions that Japanese captains still needed orders to approve. When one man fell, another took his weapon. If a squad leader was killed, a private stepped up. The attack never stopped. Japanese soldiers learned there was no moment of weakness to exploit. Every bunker destroyed only delayed the next wave. Marine training was designed to break civilians completely and rebuild them as parts of a single machine. Recruits were pushed past exhaustion, taught that quitting was shameful, and told they now belonged to something greater than themselves, the Corps. That bond made them dangerous. They fought not only for victory but for every Marine who had fought before. Combined with American industry, it produced an enemy Japan could not match. Each landing brought tanks, flamethrowers, engineers, and medics. Fresh supplies came daily from the sea. Even after taking thousands of casualties, Marine divisions were back to strength within weeks. Japan had no way to replace its losses. When the battle for Guadalcanal began, Japanese troops expected an easy victory. They were veterans of China and Southeast Asia, confident that one banzai charge could sweep away the invaders. But the Marines didn't retreat. They fought hand-to-hand in muddy foxholes, firing until their weapons jammed and then using bayonets and fists. Captured Japanese letters described disbelief. They fight like demons. Even with wounds that should kill them, they keep shooting. By dawn, entire Japanese companies were wiped out. The Marines lost men too, but they held the airfield, repaired their defenses, and prepared for the next wave. Guadalcanal changed everything. It proved that American will was not fragile. It showed that courage multiplied by industry could outlast any code of honor. Japanese soldiers began to call Marines steel men. Each new island, Tarawa, Saipan, Peleliu, Iwo Jima, only confirmed it. The pattern was always the same. Overwhelming fire, relentless assault. No pause, no retreat. To the Japanese defenders, fear didn't come from numbers alone. It came from the realization that the Marines would accept any cost to win. A position that killed half of them would still fall. That logic was incomprehensible to commanders trained to preserve their units for future battles. By 1944, Japanese intelligence manuals described Marines as shock troops who never break, who will attack until destroyed. Officers told garrisons their mission was not to win, but to delay, because victory against such an enemy was impossible. Guadalcanal was only the beginning. It revealed a truth that would echo through every battle that followed. Courage alone could not stop the machine. Guadalcanal, how the Marines broke Japanese assumptions. August 1942. The 1st Marine Division lands on Guadalcanal and seizes a half-finished airstrip that will become Henderson Field. The plan is simple and ruthless. Build a perimeter, keep the runway open, and make the island a trap. Every tree line becomes a field of fire. Every approach is measured, marked, and registered for mortars and artillery. The message to any attacker is clear: if you come, you die in lanes we already drew. From day one, the Marines fight as a system. Rifle squads push patrols into the jungle to map ground and probe routes. Machine guns and 60mm mortars pre-sight choke points. 105mm guns plot concentrations by number so forward observers can call mic targets in seconds. At night, star shells hang over likely avenues, turning darkness into a bright trap. The perimeter is not a wall. It is a geometry problem the Japanese have not solved before. The first major test comes at the Ilu River, often called the Tenaru, before dawn on August 21st. Colonel Kayaneo Ichiki's assault force drives straight into the east face of the Marine line. Instead of panic, they meet canister from 37mm guns, interlocked machine guns, and pre-plotted artillery that lands within seconds. When the attack stalls in front of wire and sand, Marine companies counterattack with bayonets at first light and roll the position from the flank. The shock is total. A formation that expected to shatter soft Americans instead dissolves under methodical fire and aggressive pushback. Why it worked? Tempo and delegation. Platoon and squad leaders are trusted to change routes, shift fires, and launch local counterattacks without waiting for a distant order. If a bunker holds up the advance, a sergeant redirects a team, calls smoke, and brings a 60mm mortar section forward. If an attack falters, Marines do not stop. They switch axes and try again within minutes. That speed denies the defender time to reset. Guadalcanal is not won only in the foxholes. It is won by an airstrip. The Cactus Air Force, a mix of Marine, Navy, and Army aircraft, flies from Henderson by day, strafing and bombing landing attempts and supply dumps. By night, Japanese destroyers, the Tokyo Express, race down the slot to land troops, but they cannot push heavy guns, ammo, and food fast enough under constant daylight air attack. Marines use the runway like a lever. Keep it operating and the entire island tilts in their favor. The next shock arrives in mid-September. On a spine of ridges south of the airfield, later called Edson's Ridge, Japanese forces probe by day and strike at night. They expect fear in darkness. Instead, they find discipline. Marines stack overlapping machine gun sectors down the slope, place trip flares, and pre-register mortar lines along likely avenues. When the attack pierces the crest, companies bend, not break, and then launch sharp counterattacks to retake the key knolls before dawn. The ridgeline holds. Henderson survives. Numbers tell only part of the story. What Japanese troops feel is worse. Relentless friction. Daylight brings patrols and limited attacks that pocket strongpoints. Night brings harassment, snipers, and probes that deny rest. When a Japanese unit massed for a push, Marine mortars and artillery arrive almost instantly, followed by counterpunches that shrink salients before they harden. No pause, no safe hour. The medical and logistics system underwrites the tempo. Wounded Marines reach corpsmen in minutes, aid stations in tens of minutes, and a hospital ship in hours when seas allow. Plasma saves lives that would be lost in other armies. Replacements slot into fire teams without paralyzing the line. Food arrives by beach or air when the Navy holds the sea. When it does not, the perimeter tightens and rations shrink, but the runway still operates. On the Japanese side, malaria, dysentery, and hunger carve down strength even before bullets arrive. Guadalcanal also proves the value of bypass. Marines learn to fix strong points, mark them, and leave them to engineers and direct fire guns while infantry slides around to seize ground that matters. Knobs that control fire, forks that control movement. This is not heroic improvisation. It is a repeatable method. Identify the decisive point, commit, and accept losses if the result unlocks the perimeter or the runway. By October, Japanese night assaults concentrate on the west. Along the Matanikaw, Marines set up kill sacks with mortars and 105s. When the Japanese cross, the valley becomes a bowl of steel. Counterattacks smash the remnants at first light. Each time the pattern repeats, confidence inside the Marine lines grows. Each time it repeats, doubt spreads among the attackers who expected Americans to yield. Guadalcanal is not a clean victory. It is a long grind that ends in February 1943 when Japanese high command orders evacuation. But the campaign teaches every garrison watching the same lesson. Marines will absorb high casualties to hold essential terrain, and they can keep a punishing tempo because their system, air, artillery, armor, engineers, logistics, and medical, keeps functioning under stress. Japanese officers update their manuals accordingly. Night attacks are no longer guaranteed to shatter the enemy. Bayonet charges against interlocked fields of fire are suicide. The defender must dig deeper, build caves, and plan to delay, not to win. What began at Guadalcanal becomes the template for the Central Pacific. Seize an airfield, wire a perimeter, deny the night, and push the tempo until the position breaks. The battles ahead, Tarawa's tide and reef, Saipan's depth, Peleliu's heat, Iwo Jima's stone, will demand even more from the Marines and from the machine behind them. But the logic forged here will hold. Tarawa, 76 hours on the edge of the reef. November 20th, 1943. Bidio Island, Tarawa Atoll. Dawn haze, a spring tide running lower than forecast, and a coral reef like a hidden wall. The 2nd Marine Division aims to seize an airstrip and a rectangle of sand less than 3 miles long. The Japanese commander, Rear Admiral Keiji Shibasaki, has promised his men that 1 million Americans would not take Bidio in 100 years. The Marines intend to prove him wrong in 76 hours. The approach goes wrong at the first gate. LVT amphibious tractors grind over the reef, but many Higgins boats cannot. Loaded with Marines, they stop dead in waist to chest-deep water hundreds of yards from shore. The choice is brutal and simple. Climb out, wade in, and take the beach under converging machine gun fire. Men step into the lagoon and disappear as rounds snap past their ears and kick plumes from the surface. Some never stand back up. Those who make the shallows find the beach is not a beach at all. It is a killing shelf covered by interlocked guns from low bunkers and log-reinforced pillboxes. Pre-sighted mortars and 75mm guns rake the approaches. The first waves are hit so hard that units lose their officers within minutes. Corporals and sergeants move up, pull scattered men into ad hoc squads, and crawl forward a yard at a time. No one waits for perfect orders. The only order is forward. Naval bombardment had smashed above-ground structures but left much of the low, earth-capped concrete intact. The fix is methodical and savage. Flamethrower teams work in twos. One carries the tank, the other guards with a carbine and grenades. Engineers belly crawl with satchel charges. Riflemen put fire into firing slits as the flame hisses and the charge thumps. A bunker goes silent, then another, then another. The Marines advance by reducing problems one hardpoint at a time. The reef forces improvisation all day. LVT crews shuttle ammunition and evacuate wounded across water lanes swept by fire. Navy destroyers shear in dangerously close and engage specific pillboxes at point-blank range. Shore parties establish signal panels and smoke markers so gunnery officers can fire within yards of friendly lines. The beachhead remains thin, but it holds. Night comes without relief. There are no rear areas, only sand, wreckage, and the constant crack of single shots from concealed pits. Day 2 is an anatomy lesson in combined arms. Tanks grind over log revetments and push through alleys blasted by engineers. When a tank bogs or throws a track, infantry swarm to protect it while another vehicle takes the lead. Mortars drape smoke to blind observation slits. Forward observers talk Navy guns and 75s onto targets in minutes. Where a bunker survives, a flamethrower finishes it. Where a trench blocks movement, a satchel charge turns it into a passage. Leadership lives at the squad and platoon level, short orders, hand signals, immediate action. Japanese counterattacks smash into the perimeter more than once. They come fast and close, sometimes at night, sometimes just before dawn. The Marines bend but do not break. Trip flares spark. Machine guns stitch lines across open ground. When the shock hits a seam, small groups counterattack at once to seal the gap. The airstrip falls sector by sector, not by sweeping maneuver but by systematic reduction. Each 100 yards captured opens a new set of angles for supporting fire, and with each set the defense gets thinner. By the third day, the island's map changes color. Surviving strongpoints fight to the last. A handful of prisoners, many of them wounded or stunned, come out only when fire makes the alternative impossible. The casualty ledger is stark. The Marines have paid dearly, thousands killed and wounded in 3 days, but the calculus that drives the operation remains intact. Once the beachhead exists, American logistics and firepower deepen it hour by hour. For the defenders, there is no replacement, no resupply, no evacuation. The longer the fight lasts, the worse their position gets. Tarawa becomes a template and a warning. The template: land, hold, and then reduce with tanks, engineers, flamethrowers, and artillery under tight radio control. The warning: reefs, tides, and fortifications demand better intelligence, more amphibious tractors, and more precise, longer bombardment. The Corps absorbs both lessons with ruthless speed. More LVTs are ordered. Pre-assault reconnaissance improves. Fire plans thicken. The machine refines itself for the larger, deeper islands ahead. Japanese survivors and captured documents describe the same experience from the other side. Disbelief that Americans will continue to attack across open water after catastrophic first-hour losses. Shock at the speed with which junior leaders adapt when plans collapse. And a grim recognition that once Marines get a foothold, the rest is arithmetic. Courage is necessary, but courage does not move concrete when the enemy has flame, charges, armor, and ships talking to radios a few yards behind the front line. Shibasaki's boast dies with him on the island he swore could not fall. BDO does not topple to a single grand maneuver. It is ground down by a system that treats bunkers as problems to be solved in sequence until none remain. The price is terrible. The result is final. Across the Pacific, garrisons take note. Caves are driven deeper. Defenses move underground. Night attacks shift from decisive thrusts to desperate harassment. Strategy pivots from winning to delaying. Tarawa is 76 hours long, but its shadow stretches over every beach that follows. It proves that Marines will pay the entrance fee and still have enough left to finish the job. It proves that when the industrial engine behind them is connected to squads that can decide and act under fire, the clock favors the attacker. And it tells every Japanese commander watching that fear of Marines is not superstition. It is a rational appraisal of what happens when spirit meets a machine that never stops. Saipan, the center of gravity. June 15, 1944. The transports turn into the wind and the first waves head for Saipan's western beaches. Ahead lies a defended shoreline, cane fields, and a mountainous spine crowned by Mount Tapasho. Behind the beaches lies something larger than an island, airfields close enough to Japan for heavy bombers. Commanders on both sides understand that whoever holds Saipan holds the future of the war in the Pacific. The landing collides with reefs, currents, and interlocked guns. Amphibious tractors claw forward while waves of fire rake the shallows. When the first Marines hit the sand, units are already mixed by surf and casualties. Corporals and sergeants pull fragments of squads into coherent teams and push inland through low scrub and cane. The plan is simple and violent. Take a slice, anchor it with machine guns and mortars, then take the next slice before defenders can mass a counterattack. By afternoon, the beachhead is narrow and bloody but connected. Tanks rumble off the ramps and immediately earn their space, crushing revetments and log walls while infantry hugs the tracks. Engineers mark lanes through minefields with white tape and brush. Forward observers talk 105s and 155s onto caves only minutes after contact. Destroyers edge in and pick out pillboxes with direct fire, trading paint for precision. The foothold holds. The island answers in the night. Mortars and infiltration teams probe soft seams. Trip flares spark. Machine guns stitch the dark. When a pocket opens, Small groups counterattack at once rather than wait for a perfect line. The rhythm learned at Guadalcanal and refined at Tarawa plays again at higher volume. No pause, no unguarded hour, pressure that never lets the defender rest. A Slido airfield falls within days, a prize that changes the map. In short order, it becomes Isley Field, a stepping stone for long-range bombers. Every foot of runway captured increases the tempo. Ammunition moves closer, medical evacuation speeds up, air cover gets tighter. The Marines use the airfield the way they use a ridgeline or road junction, as leverage that turns the rest of the island. The interior fights back in stone. Saipan's ridges and karst offer perfect ground for a defense in depth. Caves interlock. Firing slits appear where a rock seemed solid the day before. Pillboxes are low, earth-capped, and placed to force infantry into kill lanes. The solution is the same, repeated without romance. Fix the position, smoke the slits, bring up tanks and flamethrowers, belly crawl the charges, and clear the cave. Where a bunker survives bombardment, flame finishes it. Where a cave system has a second or third exit, squads fan out and choke them off, then feed demolition into the lungs of the position until it goes still. Mount Tapachot dominates the center like a stone crown. Its slopes are honeycombed with firing points, its crest a perfect observation post over the airfields and beaches. Taking it costs time and blood, but once it falls the island begins to unlock. Lines of sight lengthen, observation improves, artillery accuracy jumps. The Japanese defenders face an opponent that can now see farther, adjust faster, and cut seams before they form. Civilians are everywhere. Families hiding in ravines and caves, children darting between positions during lulls. Marines carry loudhailers, leaflets, and interpreters to pull them forward. Some emerge, many do not. The tragedy of Saipan is not only tactical but human, with thousands of non-combatants trapped inside a battlefield that grows more lethal as the cordon tightens. The machine that breaks bunkers cannot heal fear taught for years, can only try. As defeat looms, the garrison chooses shock. On the night of July 6th to 7th, a massive banzai attack rolls out of the dark. It is not a handful of men. It is thousands, wounded on stretchers, hospital staff, rear echelon troops, fused into one last surge of will. The charge slams into American lines, overruns outposts, and drives deep before organized fire and counterattacks halt it at ruinous cost. The lesson for every watcher is brutal and clear. Ferocity can tear a hole. It cannot keep it open when the other side can pour artillery, automatic weapons, tanks, and fresh platoons into the breach within minutes. By dawn, the ridge lines are bodies and twisted equipment. The perimeter holds. From that moment, the battle is arithmetic. The Marines ratchet forward, seizing ground that opens new angles for fire. Engineers and tanks reduce the strong points one by one. Logistics keeps pace. Food and water, plasma and bandages, ammunition and spares. So the tempo never collapses. For the defenders, there is no deep magazine, no rescue by sea, no second island behind Saipan to fall back on. Each cave cleared is permanent. Each casualty is final. In Tokyo, the strategic shock is wider than a red circle on a map. Saipan's fall places heavy bombers within range of Japan's home islands. That reality converts fear of Marines from rumor to doctrine. Intelligence summaries that once promised victory now instruct garrisons to delay. Caves must multiply. Fields of fire must overlap. Night attacks must shift from decisive thrusts to harassment. The manuals accept what soldiers already know. When Marines land with air and sea control and keep their tempo through casualties, the position will fall. The only variable is how long it takes and how much blood it costs. For the Marines, Saipan confirms that the method works at larger scales and against deeper defenses. It also exposes gaps that must be closed before the next island. More flamethrower tanks, better cave reconnaissance, thicker pre-assault bombardments, tighter coordination with naval gunfire under smoke and dust. The machine is not perfect. It adapts fast. Saipan ends with cliffs and chaos on the northern tip. The last pockets ground down amid a storm of rumors and suicides. When silence finally settles, the island has written two lines that will shape everything that follows. First, Airfields within reach of Japan changed the war more than any single hill or pillbox. Second, the combination of trained squads, delegated decisions, and an industrial backbone can keep an attack moving through terrain that should have stopped it. The next test will be even worse for flesh. Heat-shattered limestone, ridges like broken teeth, and a defense designed explicitly to bleed all attackers white. Peleliu waits. Peleliu, the island that tried to bleed the Marines white. September 15, 1944. The lagoon looks calm from offshore, but the plan that predicts a 4-day fight will collide with a fortress built to last months. The 1st Marine Division hits Peleliu's beaches under a sun that turns the coral white and the air into a furnace. Ahead lies an airfield the planners consider important for operations toward the Philippines. Between the beaches and that runway stands a defense unlike anything the Marines have faced so far. Colonel Kunio Nakagawa has rebuilt the Japanese playbook. No banzai charges. No waste of men in open ground. Instead, he has filled the Yumurbergal Massif, a maze of steep limestone knobs later nicknamed Bloody Nose Ridge, with caves, galleries, and firing ports sited in depth. Each position covers the next. Each has multiple exits. Every slope forces attackers to climb into intersecting fields of fire. The objective is not to throw the Marines back. It is to make every 100 meters cost so much blood that momentum dies. The first day proves the airfield can be reached. Amphibious tractors grind ashore, infantry clears the near-side revetments, and tanks rumble across the runway by afternoon. But the island does not yield. From the low hills beyond the strip, machine guns and mortars cut diagonals through the beachhead. When Marines push into the broken coral north of the airfield, the terrain suddenly changes character. Trenches vanish. Caves appear. Bullets come from angles that maps do not show. The fight slows to a crawl measured in yards. The method that worked on Tarawa and Saipan still works here, but every step is harder. Squads fix cave mouths with rifle and automatic fire. Mortars lay smoke to blind slits. Engineers and flamethrower teams belly crawl forward, feed flame and explosives into the rock, and back out while tanks put canister and high explosive into cracks and openings. One cave falls. A second opens behind it. A third appears on a flank that looked safe a minute earlier. The massif behaves like a living system that grows new heads when one is cut. Heat becomes an enemy with its own tactics. Thermometers push past 40 degrees Celsius. Canteens empty faster than they can be refilled. Coral reflects glare that stings the eyes and bakes the skin. Casualty rates climb not only from bullets and shells but from dehydration and heat stroke. Corpsmen drag men into slivers of shade, hang canteens from roots to drip into parched mouths, and mark litter with chalk so carry teams can find the wounded on their way back down the slopes. The machine that underwrites marine tempo, evacuation, plasma, supplies still functions, but every resupply run across the open airfield feels like crossing a griddle under observation. Progress comes as a chain of small, brutal problems solved in sequence. A knob dominates two approaches. It must die before anything else moves. A cave system breathes out fire through 3 vents. Each vent must be found, smoked, sealed, and blasted. A ravine offers a covered approach, then turns into a trap as guns on both rims open. Leadership lives at the squad and platoon level. Corporals call smoke and shift angles. Sergeants trade hand signals when radios are blocked by limestone and noise. If a leader falls, the next Marine picks up the plan and carries it 20 more meters. The casualty ledger tells why Peleliu becomes a byword. The 1st Marine Division absorbs thousands of casualties in weeks, including well over 1,000 dead, before elements of the U.S. Army's 81st Infantry Division move in from nearby Ongar to relieve and then finish the island. By late November, organized resistance ends. On the Japanese side, the garrison dies almost to the last man. Only a few hundred are captured, most of them gravely wounded or stunned. The arithmetic of attrition that favored the Marines everywhere still operates, but Peleliu shows how much flesh it can demand. Tactically, the battle forces adaptation in real time. Tanks work closer to infantry than before, sometimes scraping their hulls against rock to give riflemen a moving shield. Engineers shift from satchel charges alone to combinations, Bangalore's or pole charges to open, then demolition bundles to collapse. Flamethrower teams learn to conserve fuel for the final seconds when a cave's backblast sucks in air. Mortar sections practice walking smoke along cliff lines to mask lateral fire. Forward observers, often perched on ledges no wider than a boot, learn the island's echo so they can read splash and correct rounds where line of sight is a rumor. Strategically, Peleliu is a paradox. The Marines and soldiers do what they are asked. Seize an airfield, tear out the garrison, deny the enemy a base. Yet within weeks, the airfield's value fades as carrier aviation and other fields cover the Philippines campaign. Critics will later argue the island was not worth the cost. Supporters counter that no commander in September could gamble on a possible bypass with the Leyte timetable looming. What is not debated is what the battle proves about modern defense. Deep caves, crosshatched fire, and dispersed command posts can make a small island consume a division. For Japanese planners, Peleliu confirms the doctrine already drafted after Saipan. Caves are king. Overhead cover beats thick walls. Fire must come from angles, not lines. Counterattacks are for moments of local advantage, not for throwing bodies at wire. Delay is the mission. For the Marines, the lessons are written on the coral in heat haze. More flamethrower capability, more demolition, better cave reconnaissance, tighter infantry tank engineer teams, thicker pre-assault bombardment with attention to overhead cover, and relentless logistics built to operate under observation and in extreme heat. When the Umurbergal finally falls, it does not feel like a triumph so much as a release. The ridges that once spoke with machine guns are quiet. The airfield that once drew fire becomes a strip of shimmering heat. The division that came ashore expecting days has spent long weeks grinding a mountain into silence. The machine held, but the cost is carved into every company's roster. Ahead lie islands whose names already carry weight, most of all Iwo Jima and Okinawa. They will combine the worst of everything seen so far. Beaches under zeroed artillery, labyrinths of caves, and defenders who have studied Peleliu and built deeper. The Marines will bring a refined method and more fire. The outcome is not in doubt. The price is Iwo Jima, Okinawa, and what the war finally proved. February 19, 1945. Iwo Jima. 3 Marine divisions land on black volcanic sand under artillery that has every approach registered. The plan accepts risk up front. Get ashore, push past the beach, and keep the attack moving while engineers and tanks reduce the strong points. Naval bombardment has flattened above-ground structures, but caves and concrete live. The first hours are blood and confusion. Units mix in the surf. Squads reform by hand signals. When a bunker stops the advance, another squad crawls, throws smoke, and pulls a flamethrower forward. The attack never pauses for a perfect alignment. It inches, then surges. General Tadamaki Kurabayashi's defense is the most disciplined the Marines will face. No wasteful banzai charges. No dramatic counterattacks against prepared fire. He has built a defense in depth with caves tied by tunnels, artillery hidden under rock, and firing slits that turn every yard into a calculation. The goal is not to push the Marines back. The goal is to bleed them until momentum fails. The answer is the same system the Marines have refined since Guadalcanal. Fix, smoke, flame, blast, bypass, repeat. Engineers and demolitions become the center of gravity. Tanks work hub to hub with infantry, scraping their hulls against stone to give cover while canister and high explosive break the edges off cave mouths. Forward observers ride the line, calling naval guns to erase positions too tough for anything else. Mount Suribachi falls within days, a flag rising into a sky still cut by shells. The north is the real fight. Terraced slopes, honeycombed rock, and angles that seem to multiply. Leaders die and are replaced in the same minute. The tempo holds because the machine behind it holds. Wounded off the line in minutes, plasma and surgery on ships, ammunition dragged forward by LVTs and dozers, fresh squads slotting into gaps before seams open. After 36 days, the math is stark. About 70,000 Marines have fought on the island. Roughly 26,000 become casualties, nearly 6,800 killed. The Japanese garrison begins near 21,000. Only a small fraction are captured, most of them too wounded to resist. The island is a ruin, but it is in American hands, and its airfields now recover damaged bombers and escort fighters closer to Japan. Kuribayashi's doctrine proves correct in one sense. Delay inflicts horrific cost. It fails in the only sense that matters. The Marines do not stop. April 1st, 1945. Okinawa. The last and largest amphibious assault in the Pacific opens on beaches that feel, at first, almost empty. The real defense lives in the south, in limestone ridges, reverse slopes, and cave complexes that face not the sea but the inland approaches. The battle will run nearly 3 months. It will combine the worst of every island taken so far. Heavy artillery, deep cave systems, weather that soaks everything, and civilians trapped between rumor and fire. It adds 2 new weights to the scale. One is the kamikaze, massed waves of aircraft striking ships around the island, turning logistics into a daily triage of smoke, damage control, and steel nerves. The other is sheer scale. Multiple U.S. Army Corps and 2 Marine divisions grinding forward under a sky constantly cut by tracers and smoke. The method still works, but the terrain and numbers stretch it to the breaking point. Each ridgeline is an equation. If infantry attacks alone, it dies. If tanks push first, they are trapped in draws under mines and anti-tank guns. If artillery and naval gunfire smash the crest, the enemy shifts to a second set of caves that were never visible from seaward angles. So squads work edges and draws in teams. Flamethrowers are husbanded for the last 6 meters, when a cave breathes out and then drags air back in. Satchel charges collapse galleries from the inside. Mortars walk smoke along a face while riflemen move. When a position falls, the line inches to the next and does it again. The tempo is brutal rather than fast, but the key property remains. It does not collapse. Civilian presence changes the daily fight. Leaflets, loudhailers, and interpreters try to pull families out of caves and ravines. Many come forward. Many do not. Marines and soldiers find children in culverts and elders in tunnel mouths. All of them terrified by years of propaganda that promise torture and murder. Units split water, rations, and time between clearing positions and guiding civilians to safety. The machine that wins battles cannot erase lies taught to the frightened. It can only keep a corridor open and keep moving. By June, the southern ridges break. The casualty bills are staggering. American losses on Okinawa run into the tens of thousands killed and many more wounded across all services. Ships burn under suicide strikes in numbers no fleet has endured before. Japanese ground forces die almost to the last organized unit. The island is taken, but the cost clarifies the future. If caves and ridges on a single island can demand this much blood, the home islands would demand more. Strategic decisions shift accordingly. The war ends not with another beach, but with fire from the sky and the sudden silence of surrender. What did these last battles prove about why Japanese soldiers feared the Marines more than any other enemy? First, that Marine units carried a tempo that punishment could slow but not break. Leaders were trained to delegate, and squads were trained to act without waiting for perfection. Second, that combined arms was not a slogan but a sequence. Fix with rifles and automatic weapons, blind with smoke, kill with flame and demolition, crush with tanks, erase with artillery and naval guns, and repeat until nothing fires back. Third, that logistics is a weapon. Hot food, water, ammunition, evacuation, and surgery turn short-term losses into long-term resilience. Fourth, that doctrine adjusted faster than the defender. When caves defeated bombardment, Marines brought flame and demolition to the mouth. When reefs stopped boats, they brought more LVTs. When night attacks aimed to break morale, patrols and star shells turned darkness into a second day. The Japanese side adapted too. Kuribayashi on Iwo Jima and the cave systems on Okinawa show a hard learning curve. Abandon wasteful charges, hide guns under rock, multiply exits, and turn every slope into a crossfire. Those choices made the Marines pay more for every 100 meters. They did not change the outcome. In modern war, courage is necessary but not sufficient. Spirit without supply loses to spirit backed by ships, factories, radios, and units trained to make decisions at the lowest level. Across the Pacific, the same sentence was written 1,000 ways. The Marines said they would land, and they landed. They said they would take the objective, and they took it. They paid whatever it cost and kept moving. For Japanese soldiers in those caves and tunnels, fear of Marines was not mysticism. It was recognition. They were facing an opponent who shared their willingness to die and added a nation's industry, a doctrine that turned men and machines into one system, and a tempo that never stopped until the last gun fell silent.